Okay, a bit of a crash to Panopta there. So I was trying to say that there's also been some research about the social media platform Snapchat and jealousy and how people become jealous as a result of Snapchat. In this study by Utz, Muscanel and Khalid in 2015, they compared Facebook-related jealousy and Snapchat jealousy. So they presented participants with items such as, your partner added a previous romantic or sexual partner to his list of friends on either of these platforms. Your partner privately messaged an unknown member of the opposite sex. Your partner sends pictures, makes wall posts to himself or herself with unknown members of the opposite sex. So how much each of these items would elicit jealousy? And basically what they found was that these kind of things elicited more jealousy via Snapchat than they did via Facebook. And the reason for that being is that, as we know, Snapchat is a more kind of, the posts disappear then after a certain amount of time. So people are left kind of wondering, what their partner might be doing. So whereas on Facebook you can kind of check it out, go back and check it later. On Snapchat it's done and it's gone. People become worried because of the fact that the messages are kind of self-deleting after a certain period of time. One thing which might, we thought, at least give rise to jealousy in social media is the degree of validation people get. So basically this is the amount of sort of likes people get for social media posts. So getting likes or not getting likes seems to be quite important to people, in as much as getting likes sort of validates them and gives them some kind of sense of well-being, if you like. And this possibly also true in relationships as well, in as much as people getting or giving likes or not giving likes to their partners on social media can be important. Anyway, we just developed a little what we call a social media validation scale, and these are some of the items on the scale. It is important for me to receive likes on social media. I'm not going to read them all. Feels good to be mentioned in social media. I would delete a post if it received no likes or comments after 24 hours. The amount of likes I receive are important to me. I accept friend requests in social media regardless of whether I've met someone in real life, which we probably all might have done. So these are the kind of items we ask people to respond to on a scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree on a 5-point scale. Okay, then we carried out what we call a data reduction statistical technique or principal component analysis. And that scale, which I think features 23 items, we reduced down to 5 different components. One of which was effort, which was positive posting, doing things especially to get more likes. So if you think you've seen a good joke and you think, if I post that I can get lots of likes, people are making an effort to do that. Or if I post a picture of myself, winning a race or something, and that's going to get likes, and I'm going to post that picture. Feeling good, so people might post things, feeling better when they feel down. If they do feel down, it feels good to be mentioned, and it's by posting things they can get a mention, they can get a like, which makes them feel better, even when they might feel a little bit low or a bit down. The third component was manipulation. That people might delete posts, such as I said earlier, that people might delete posts after 24 hours if it didn't receive any or many likes, and they kind of manipulate their timeline accordingly. Honesty and accuracy in posting. So some people said, well, I only post things that I believe in, and I use social media, properly, kind of thing, if there's such a thing. And finally, blindness. Well, that was just a term we came up with, which is accepting friend requests from people you don't know, or just liking posts which are even inconsistent with your actual views, or posting things which are inconsistent with your views just to get likes. And we looked at each of those components for various things, but one thing we looked at was gender. And as you can see there, the male effort ratings, that is manipulating your social media just to get likes, far higher for males than for females. And the blindness scores, i.e. accepting friend requests or posting things you don't necessarily agree with just to get some validation, again, greater for males than for females. Why I'm talking about this is because this is, we thought was, if we continue with this research, was possibly important in respect of sort of romantic relationships, that people might become jealous if they didn't validate their partner via social media. Anyway, we're now going to come on to talk about phone jealousy. That's because our phones are important to us, our smartphones, and they're important for two reasons, I guess. One is because everybody's smartphone is slightly different, in as much as the apps people have on their phones are slightly different to somebody else's. But apart from that, your kind of browsing history is contained in your phone, your bookmarks for your browsers on your phone, your address book, all your kind of personal details are contained on your phone. So people have an attachment to their phone for that. And secondly, phones are what we call relationship facilitating devices, in as much as we can contact other people via phone, not just by phone call, but via various messaging channels. Therefore, phones are relationship facilitating devices because people can get in touch with others via their phone. Obviously, that's what they're for. Okay, so anyway, in this study by Darby, Knox and Easterling, they found that 2/3 of participants had admitted to surreptitiously looking through their partner's private messages on their phone. If you compare that with Monica Whitty's study I mentioned in the last session, I think that's considerably higher. And that includes people looking through social networking, social media sites on their phone, or their messages or texts on their phone. So people have checked their partner's phones, without quite considerably, a lot without their partner's consent. So there's kind of overwhelming evidence there that people are kind of looking at their partner's phones. 2/3 of people are admitting or reporting doing that. And as we know, this is a self-report study. Quite often in self-report studies, people tend to under-report. So 2/3 is a probably very conservative estimate, I would have thought. I'm just speculating. Anyway, there's been some research, or there was some research, I should say, a couple of years back by, it's just this insurance website survey is the kind of secondary data source I got from that. But it's research which was carried out by various insurance companies, because they were facing lots of claims in relation to damaged phone handsets. And so they thought, well, why are we getting lots of claims for damaged phones? They surveyed 2,400 people in the UK. What they discovered was that 41% of cases of cheating, were revealed by looking at a partner's mobile phone. So people were caught out for cheating 41% of the time just because their partner had found evidence on their phone. 10%, and you might wonder if that's unreported as well, 10% reported that their phone had become broken after being dropped or thrown following an argument regarding this. So lots of phones then broken as a result of that. That's why this research was carried out by these various insurance companies. Very interesting study by Mike Dunn and his colleague from Cardiff Metropolitan University, actually this is, in 2014. This study resembles, if you think back to David Buss's paradigm of what makes you feel more jealous, this one is similar to that. What they did was to construct on a couple of phones they had for their research text messages featuring emotional content or sexual content, which they presented to males and to females. And what they looked at was the number of fixations on each message, via eye tracking equipment, and also the overall time they spent looking at each message. So just looked at the number of kind of fixations, how often they kind of darted back and forth to that message, and the overall amount of time they actually spent looking at that message. And there are two types of message, as I said. There's one with an emotional content and one with a sexual content. And they measured the differences between males and females in terms of these two dependent variables here, the number of fixations and the overall time, okay, for the messages containing emotional content and the sexual content. Okay, what they found, as you can imagine, was that males spent a lot more time looking at the message which contained the sexual content, and females spent a lot more time and there were a lot more fixations on the message containing the emotional content, which is consistent with what Buss said about jealousy differences, okay, being in response to emotional content or a sexual scenario, and this study supports that and kind of brings it up to date a little bit. So just, I guess, going back to the essay, I was asking about how relationships have changed. Well, with the advent of phones, maybe behaviour's not changed, is it? Because these results are consistent with what Buss said about jealousy and responses to jealousy. This study seems to find exactly the same thing, albeit through a different medium. It's possible to get, I think somebody said this to me in the synchronous session last time, that you can get little kind of apps on your phone now, one of which is called Text Crypto, where people can kind of store their messages if they feel that they want to keep messages a little bit private. So it's a way in which maybe partners who are kind of being unfaithful might keep their messages in little kind of secret folders on their phone. Therefore, they're even if their partner breaks into their phone, they can't get into those messages. In terms of jealousy as well, there's also been some reports, and this is kind of anecdotal as well. I think I got this from a newspaper or something, but it wasn't from a newspaper. I'm sorry, it was a survey where one of the kind of ways in which jealous male partners open their partner's phones just to wait until they're asleep at night. So people are sleeping with their phones near their beds, and when their partner's asleep, what they do is pick up their partner's sleeping hand, okay, use their fingerprint on the home button on their phone in order to open their phone and look at their phone when their partner's asleep. Finally then, in terms of measuring jealousy online, we generated, and you can look at this when you look at the slides. I know it's a little bit small on the screen here. Some items to try to measure jealousy online, such as I constantly share, or I don't know if it's to measure jealousy. Yes, it was. I constantly share photos of my partner and I doing something together. I'm happy when such and such made us official online. So we got a number of different items on this scale. And again, we subjected these to a principal component analysis, okay, to come up with 3 different factors, which were togetherness, worry, and posting, okay, and then we compared that. If you forget the one which says love, that's the love scale, which only correlated negatively correlated with avoidant attachment styles. But we looked at our scale in relation to attachment. And the worry component, if you want to go back and look at the items which make up that worry component, okay, they correlated with avoidant and anxious attachment styles, but negatively correlated with secure attachment styles. And all those things there, the correlations between worry and each of the attachment styles are significant, which is, I guess, kind of interesting. There are scales to measure jealousy, and you might want to sort of Google or look those up. You can find those quite easily online, various scales which have been used to measure jealousy. However, in terms of their face validity, they're probably sort of suffering or lacking a little bit now because some of the items are not quite up to date. That's why we had a bit of a stab there at generating some items ourselves, just to see if we could measure jealousy on, through an online context, because as we've seen through the course of these last two sessions, the social media, online communication is just another kind of way in which people can feel jealous of their partner, and it just kind of opens up maybe jealousy, and people might feel more jealous now maybe because of social media. I don't know. I'll leave that for you to speculate on, and maybe do a little bit of research around that. And that might be something upon which you can focus in your essay. So that's it for this session on jealousy then. There's a lot more on jealousy which I guess I'd like to talk about, but I'm not got the opportunity now. But I'm sure you can find lots of information on that for your essay, should you choose to do so.